Hello everyone, my name is Nilesh. In this video tutorial series, I'm going to talk about JDBC, Java Database Connectivity. In this first video, we will talk about what is JDBC, what exactly JDBC driver is, how to write JDBC programs, and we will have some demonstration for executing SQL queries on MySQL database. So let us get started with this. The very first thing, JDBC is a specification given by Sun Microsystem, nowadays Oracle, for connecting with RDBMS. A point to note over here, JDBC is only for the relational databases and is not used for NoSQL databases. This specification includes some helper classes like driver manager, and there are main interfaces given. All these helper classes and interfaces, they belong to java.sql package, out of which most important interfaces are driver interface, connection interface, statement interface, and result set interface. The driver interface is responsible for connecting with RDBMS. Internally, it creates socket connection with the database. The connection represents a session with database. It is used to create the statement and also used for transaction management. Your SQL queries are represented by the statement interface. There are some more interfaces like prepared statement and callable statement inherited from the statement interface. If we are executing any non-select query, we get the number of rows affected. However, if we are executing a select query, we get number of rows and columns in form of another object called as result set object. Now, these are important interfaces given as a part of specification. But who is implementing this specification? These specifications are implemented by JDBC driver. A JDBC driver is a set of classes inherited from these interfaces, and you can consider JDBC driver is like a program which converts Java request to database understandable form and database response into Java understandable form. There are mainly four types of JDBC driver. The first type is JDBC ODBC bridge driver. The second type is partial Java driver, where the partial implementation is done in C++ for better performance. The third type is middleware driver, and fourth driver is purely Java driver. Most commonly used drivers out of this are type 4 drivers. In this tutorial, I'm going to talk about the type 4 driver and demonstrate the same. Each RDBMS vendor is going to provide his own separate Java driver. For example, Oracle JDBC driver is also called as Oracle theme driver, or MySQL JDBC driver is referred as MySQL connector driver. Now, as you know what is JDBC specification and you understand that it has been implemented by the driver, it's time to understand for any JDBC program what are the steps to follow. Since JDBC is a specification and same specification is implemented by all the drivers, good thing is that steps remain same irrespective of whether you are connecting to Oracle, MySQL, Microsoft SQL Server, or for that sake any RDBMS. The first and important step is to register the JDBC driver with the driver manager. Now, this driver manager is keeping collection of all drivers. Typically, your driver jar contains a class inherited from java.sql.driver interface, which is responsible for creating the database connection. This particular driver need to be registered with the driver manager so that while creating a connection, driver manager can use that particular driver. The preferred way is to do class.forName and provide the package name dot driver class name. For example, for MySQL, the driver class name is com.mysql.cj.jdbc.driver class. The static block inside the class is internally registering itself with the driver manager. A registering driver is one-time activity. For the newer JDBC drivers, this step is optional because these drivers are auto-registered by Java SPI technique, that is Service Provider Interface. Once driver is registered, then we can proceed with creating the connection with the database. That can be done by driver manager dot connect method. You need to provide appropriate JDBC URL, database username, database password, and you get the connection object. Once connection object is available, we can use it to create the statement. That can be done by simply saying connection dot create statement. Whatever statement object is available, we can execute the query using that statement object. Statement dot execute update is used for executing non-select statement and it returns number of rows affected, while statement dot execute query, you can give a select statement and it returns the result set object to represent the number of rows and columns. Once the queries are executed, you need to close all these objects including result set, statement and connection in order to avoid the resource leakage. Now, as you are clear with how to write a typical JDBC program, it's time to do it practically. But to do it practically, we need to first choose RDBMS and need to get ready with this. As I said earlier, I'll be preferring using MySQL database. So first of all, you need to install MySQL on your computer. Whenever MySQL is installed, it installs MySQL Server as well as MySQL CLI. MySQL Server is a MySQL D or MySQL daemon process that runs in a background and keep taking requests at port number 3306. We will use MySQL CLI to connect to the database and create a table and add few rows in it. Let us go ahead and let us do it practically. So here I have some command prompt. Let me use MySQL. By default, when MySQL is installed, root user is created. It is not recommended to use root user for all the purposes, but for sake of simplicity, right now I'm continuing using the root user itself. While installation, you must have also given password for the root user. You need to apply that password over here. Now, I want to create a database for testing. I just name that create database test. Let me start using that database, and at this moment there are no tables created, but let me create a first table over here. The first table that I'm creating over here, create table students. I can give roll number as a first field of type integer. I'm giving name as second field of type varchar. I'm giving a third field, let's say marks, let's say of double type. And then you can insert few records into this, which we will write a JDBC program and try to display in our application. So insert into students, I can give values. Let's say roll number is 1. Let's say name of a student, and let me also give some marks for this. I can insert, let's say, one more user. Let's say that this user is Bill, and also let me put some marks over here. I want to add one more over here. Let's say the name of a person is Dennis, and again I want to add few more marks into this. Then you can check whether all these records are inserted into the database. Well, all these records are present in the database. Now you can continue with Eclipse to perform the JDBC application programming steps. So let me open Eclipse, and into the Eclipse, the very first thing I want to do is create a new Maven project. As I told you already, for each RDBMS there is a separate driver. So for MySQL, the driver, we need to add it into our project class path, and Maven can do it pretty well for me. So let me pick up a Maven project, and into the Maven project you can give the general details like let me name it as demo01 JDBC. You can also use it as your project name. Finish. If you are new to Maven, you can go back to my another tutorial on how to use Maven into Eclipse. And now I need MySQL JDBC driver for Maven. You can select from that. Once you find it, you can find out the latest driver that is available, right? And you can copy its dependency from here. This dependency that is copied from here, you can add it into your project's form.xml file, and then you find that this particular MySQL driver get added into your project. So let me add it under dependencies, right? Also, I want this project to use Java 11. By default, Maven use Java 1.5. So let me set up some properties to do so. If you are changing some build properties like Java version or something, you must be updating your project. Now Java 11 is there, and Maven dependencies are added into my project class path. Now it's time to write the application. New class, and the application is, let's say, demo01 main. I'll put it in a package called as a com.example package, and I click on finish. Obviously I want to create a main method for this, and into the main method I want to write a very simple program where I want to fetch all the data and I want to display that. Few things that you will be needing for this, I prefer to keep it into the strings like database driver, and as I said that for MySQL the driver is com.mysql.cj.jdbc.driver class. Apart from that, I also need database URL. This database URL represent where exactly my database is kept and which RDBMS I'm using. So it is JDBC colon MySQL colon my database is on my local machine and it is listening to port number 3306 into the database schema test. Then I also have database username. As I said that I'm using root, and you can give the password of your database over here. Done. Now the very first step and one-time step is to load the driver. Even though modern applications you may not need that, but for sake of clarity, let me do it. And since I want to do it as a one-time activity, better I use it in a static block. I'll put it over here, class.forName, and I want to specify database driver. If something went wrong, there is no point in executing this code further. So I'll just print this and I will simply exit from my application. But if the driver is loaded and registered correctly, now it's time to go ahead and create a database connection. So I'll create a database connection like connection con is equal to driver manager dot get connection, where I need to pass database URL, database username, database password. You remember that at the end I need to close the connection. Also, in all JDBC APIs, the exception thrown SQL exception is a checked exception. So I need to also take care of handling that. I prefer writing try with resource block, which will handle the exception. At the same time, it will take care of closing the connection automatically at the end. Done. Next, the next thing I need to create is a statement, and the query that I'm planning to execute is select star from students. That's great. This is a query that I want to execute. Let me create the statement for executing the query, and this is my statement object. Again, I need to close this plus statement at the end. I prefer using try with resource block once again, so that the statement get closed automatically even if there is any exception. Now I want to execute this flow query, that is simply execute query or execute update. But this is a select query. For select query, I should be using execute query, and as I said already, it returns me the result set object. Now this result set object also I need to close it at the end. Let me again continue using try with resource block over here. Using result set, we can access the database data row by row, and that is the reason to access each time next row we can use rs.next. We always say that result set is like a forward only cursor, so we can by default keep forwarding the result set and keep getting the row one by one. Now let me get the first roll number, and that is rs dot get integer, and I want to get like a first column, which is nothing but roll number column. But obviously this is not that readable. Instead of putting one over here, we can prefer putting the name of the column. Something similar, I want to get the name. This time it is rs dot get string. You can write 2, or preferably I would write the name of the column. Third thing, I want to get the marks, and I'm writing rs dot get double, and again I can write 3, or I can write marks name of the column over here and simply use system.out.println for printing the roll number followed by name followed by marks. That's it. You please understand that it is accessing only one row at a time. It is printing that row and again repeating loop so that it can fetch the next row. Automatically at the end of this try block, the result set will be closed. At the end of this try block, the statement will be closed, and at the end of this block, automatically the connection will be closed. If you are not using try with resource, then it is your responsibility to write the finally block and ensure that all these objects are closed properly. Now let me run this application and check if it is working for me. Wow, I just get the output and everything seems to be going correct. In this simple demo, I explained you how to use result set to get the records row by row and display them. There are many other things that can be done by the result set like insert, update and even delete operation. However, the preferred way of DML is not using result set but using execute update on the statement. How we can do that? Let us go ahead and let us try to have a simple demo where I'll show you how we can insert records into MySQL. Let me create a new Maven project. In this Maven project, I keep it simple project once again and let me enter com.example where I say that this is demo 02 JDBC. Let me use same name for the project and I click on finish. Similar to the earlier project, we need to add dependency into this project as well. So let me copy the content from the previous form.xml file and put it over here. You need to update the project once. Done. And now you can continue to create the main class. The main class that we have demo 02 main. I'll put it in a package com.example. Whatever steps we had done it for the earlier application, I guess the basic steps required are still same. So let me follow them as it is. I'm just copying from there and exactly same thing we need it for this as well. However, in this program we want to write a SQL query which is an insert query. So let me move further. SQL is equal to insert into students and you need some values to be taken. Okay, that is good. And there are 3 values we need to pass. Of course, for these values, we need to take the values from the user first. And for a console application, we can use a simple scanner for that purpose. Okay, let me try to create a scanner object. Scanner sc is equal to new scanner and I can specify system.in. Let me ask user to enter 3 things. The first thing that I want user to enter is roll number. So enter roll number and that you can take it as an input from the user sc.next integer. I want to take the name from the user. Just go ahead and follow enter name and I can simply say next to collect the name. Followed by this, I also want to get the marks from the user. So enter marks, and again I can use next double, where I can get double marks over here. Now once it is ready, I want to pass it to my SQL query. I can use string concatenation for creating a query, even though it is not a good idea, but for simple demonstration I do it like this. From the next video you can find out a better alternative to that, that is referred as prepared statement. For time being, I'm just passing a roll number and comma. Within single quote I want to specify the name. Let me complete the single quote, followed by that comma, plus I need to also add double marks over here. Done. And this is where my query is ready. This query I want to execute it using statement dot execute update. You can pass the query, and what it returns you is number of rows affected. We can try to print that rows inserted. Obviously it is expected that in this application only one row is inserted. That's it. It's over. Let us go ahead, try to run this application as well. Let me enter a new roll number. Let's say 5. Name of the user, let's say it is Steve, and marks, again I'm entering, let's say 97. Done. And one row is inserted. You can quickly go to the CLI and check if Steve is inserted in database. Oh, that is great. I hope in this demo you understood how we can create a Java project, how we can add the dependency, and we can follow typical JDBC steps to perform select query execution as well as non-select query execution. Hopefully this video is useful to you. Stay tuned for the next video, where we will talk about the prepared statement and callable statement to execute the stored procedures. Thank you very much.